Welcome into the latest edition of our Cubs Recap Podcast, a presentation of our Recap YouTube channel and available audio only everywhere you get your favorite podcasts. With my partner and my friend, he is Gordon Wittenmeyer. I'm David Kaplan. All right, G-Dub, let's talk about, we're recording this. The Cubs have won 4 of 5. They pounded the Baltimore Orioles and Dean Kramer behind Jamison Tyone and a battery of productive at-bats. Now they've got to deal with Corbin Burns. They've got Imanaga on Wednesday night. We're taping today. And then they've got Justin Steele. So as you look at them right now, in your mind, I have my thought. In your mind, are they sellers, buyers, or do nothing?
Well, we've talked about this a couple of times, and I go back to the conversation we had with Michael Cerami on the last one. They can't sell. I mean, they're not in a position to sell. We ran down that roster, and who the hell are you going to sell? You can't. I mean, even when Cody Bellinger fell to you on a 3-year deal, it turned out to be a bad contract in terms of being able to be flexible going forward, or certainly at this trade deadline.
Yep, no question.
You don't have any pieces to sell, but you're not in a position by any stretch of the imagination to be a buyer in any sort of traditional sense, because the team's not going anywhere, man. And I know you got your Otis the Owl back there, and you think that's going to be the key to the whole thing.
I got it right there.
The bullpen, but it ain't happening, man. And we've seen close to 2/3 of the season now, well over half the season, to know what this team is, what its identity is. And they're sitting in last place right now. I mean, they're now granted, it's kind of bunched up, especially 3 to 5, but I just don't see the run in them that you might see. Now, they just beat the Orioles. They had a nice win against the Phillies recently. They got Steele and Imanaga. They're 2 all-stars pitching the next 2 nights. Fine. That's fine. You know who the Reds are playing, the team that's right above them in the standings? They're playing the Rockies and the Marlins to go to the break. So that's at least a wash. That's no better than a wash, even if the Cubs play their best baseball getting to the break. And then it's a sprint to the trade deadline. I just don't know. There's also going to be a lot of demand for hitters, a lot of demand for relief pitchers. We know they could use relief pitchers. I don't know if they're going to pay the price. I don't know how much of a price they can pay for some of those guys. I mean, are you going to go out and get Tanner Scott from the Marlins? I mean, he's got a 1-something ERA. He'd be the kind of guy you'd go get. He's going to cost a lot. He's going to be top of the market.
Okay, let me tell you this, Gordon. A few things. One, Merriweather's coming back. He is a quality arm. He's been gone for, 3 months?
Yeah, I saw he just made a rehab appearance.
They just brought Biggie up from the minors, who had a .79 ERA and throws 100 miles an hour.
Hey, wait. So his ERA is Biggie Smalls?
Pretty much. He .79. They are, in terms of position players hitting, you got to be honest here. Ian Happ, the last 6 weeks, has a weighted runs created plus that is 3rd in all of baseball. That is a large sample size. The only guys ahead of him are the kid who had 12 straight hits for the Twins and Shohei Ohtani. And Michael Busch, if this team wasn't in last place, he's an all-star.
They're 4th in the division, Cap, in runs per game. They're bottom 3 in the league in relief pitching. And they've been healthy at times this year with that bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there will be stretches, there always are, where some of these weak position areas are strengths for a period of time and get on a roll. We've seen that a little bit with the Cubs bullpen, but they are what they are, man, and that won't sustain because the quality just isn't there.
In terms of looking at the deadline, I disagree vehemently with Carter Hawkins, who I heard doing a Cubs pregame show recently. Carter Hawkins said, the question was, do you need to get somebody with some fire in that clubhouse, in that dugout. I'm not talking about a coach or manager. I'm talking about a player, somebody that kicks people in the ass. And he said, that's all well and fine, but you don't go out and acquire that. That's a quality that a player brings, but you acquire the player, not the personality. And I disagree with him. This is the most vanilla, boring baseball team that I've watched in a long, long time. They're not unlikable. They're just not likable. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. When the Ricketts took over that team, the irony was a family bought from a corporation and the organization became more corporate.
Right.
We talked about that a lot at the time.
Well, the quote from Crane Kenny was, we were a corporate-owned team run like a family business. We became a family business run like a corporate team.
Right. So, in other words, they admit it. So, there's that. But one thing about it, we know that prior to them, when you Hendry front offices and so forth, they had guys like Zambrano. That, just put it this way, they had a lot of fire in that clubhouse, a lot of competitive edge and so on. That's fine. And some of that they went to a different philosophy when Theo came in, but Theo would not have said what Carter Hawkins said, because whatever you want to say about how Theo sort of quantified the skill sets of everybody they acquired and kind of did it and had all this, had his sort of matrix way of fitting everything together. That edge was something that he knew he had to have, and that's why Kyle Schwarber was drafted. That's why John Lackey was acquired. These and by the way, when they were chasing the follow-up to the World Series, when they were chasing success after that, they wondered if they didn't have enough of that. They wondered if they'd lost that with some of the players they lost, and they chased it. They went after John Jay, for instance, a clubhouse guy. Those, so I'm with you. I disagree with Carter Hawkins on that, and I think that they've gotten, and maybe it's a top-down personality thing that trickles all the way down, but I would suggest maybe that it starts with Jed, because he's much more sort of meticulous, risk-averse, safe when he's putting together a team, and I think that's what he's done. I mean, it's great. He's got a bunch of good dudes, and some of them are good players, but I don't see except for the guy that wanted to beat up the dugout wall, Colton Brewer. I don't see much other real sort of daily fight.
Yeah, the only other thing I saw, and I'm a huge fan of Justin Steele. Not just the pitcher, the dude. I like how he does his business.
Yes.
I ran into him at a restaurant, had a long talk with him. I'm like, that's my kind of guy right there.
Yeah, what he said coming off the field that day.
Wake the F up.
Yes. They need more of that. They don't have enough of that. And you could say, Christopher Morel's an energy guy. He's a guy that could be a guy like that at some point with an edge. He's still real young, and he's still trying to figure out where he fits. But Dansby Swanson isn't really that guy. He's competitive.
No.
He's with some teams. He's got a skill set, but he's not really that guy. Ian Happ's not really that guy. Suzuki's not. Just run down the list and tell me.
Bellinger's not.
No, Bellinger's the opposite of that.
Right.
So I just don't see it. And Imanaga brings a terrific personality, but it's not. That's not the same as what Justin Steele brought.
Correct.
So I agree with you. I think you need more of that. And we've talked about you're the economic juggernaut in the division, so you can go pick these players, and you've gone out and got the ex MVP in Bellinger. You've gone out and got the $177 million shortstop with the Gold Gloves. You gave your guy Happ an extension. You went and got the Japanese hitter in Suzuki. You went and got a Japanese pitcher in Imanaga. And these have all, you could make the argument that these were all good moves. I don't necessarily think they overpaid for any of these guys, but we've talked in the past about this team maybe not living up. The sum of its parts aren't as. But what's that phrase about? It's not as the sum isn't as good as the part. Whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's kind of where they're at. We talked about this. You can fool yourself, Cap. You and your damn Otis the Owl over there can fool yourselves all you want about where this might be headed. But we talked since April. This division will keep most everybody in it, at least into August, if not through August. And if you got any ability at all, you can pretend you're contenders all the way into September. But good luck finishing it.
The phrase is the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
That's it. And it's not.
Correct.
So there
you go. No question. So as you look at this team, I'm going to give you my opinion now. If I was sitting in Jed's shoes, first of all, I would have done something long before this. And if I had to overpay moderately, I would have done it. I would not be in freaking last place and taking it lying down. And that was my problem. I'd love to sit and have a beer with him and say, Jed, I understand you don't want to trade, a good prospect, but guess what? Your season is going down the freaking drain. You have to save it. And I said this on the radio to Jonathan Hood, and he agreed. You might tell me I'm nuts. You usually do anyway. If George Steinbrenner was alive and his team was scuffling mightily and needed a closer or a setup man or a catcher, he would have walked into that GM's office and said, okay, either you fix this goddamn mess or I will. And if I do, I don't need you. So get a goddamn closer in here, go find a freaking catcher and fix it now. And he'd have walked out. The Cubs have done nothing like that.
No, and we know why, right? We know why, because this is the new age of front offices. Most of them cater to the owner's bottom line as the highest priority, well above the priority of winning. Winning's next, if next, might be third, but the top priority anymore is stable bottom line profits, revenues and profits. And so if you can fool enough of the people enough of the time to keep buying your damn tickets and your TV packages, and you can put enough players out there that people want to watch, that's the goal. And then if you can win, great. I think the game has gone back asswards when it comes to how front offices look at things, and the Cubs are Exhibit A.
Okay, so as we head to the deadline, to the All-Star break, and then right around the corner, the 30th of July, it's the deadline. What I would do is I would go out in acquisition mode, but not a rental. I don't need rental. Now, if you told me, oh, my God, they swept the Orioles, they swept Fort St. Louis, they came out of the All-Star break and they won 8 of 10, and you're like, wow, where'd the Cubs come from? That's a different story. But short of that, I got to show my team, my fan base, my owner, guess what? I'm done watching this nonsense. Brian Cashman just came out and said, enough's enough. I'm not going to watch this anymore because the Yankees have been scuffling. The Reds went in and beat their ass. I would go out and see what's it going to take for me to get a guy who I control for a couple of years, whether that's Bo Bichette, whether that is Vladimir Guerrero, whether that is someone else on another team that's up the track that says, we're not going to be able to sign that dude, so give me a couple prospects, you can have them, and then I'm extending him. I'm saying, guess what? Whoever that player is, I'm not saying it's Vladimir Guerrero because I like Michael Busch, but there's got to be someone out there on a team that's going to get paid that they can't afford, that they go, all right, we'll trade him to you. And then I lock them up, and I say to my fan base, I mean freaking business. This bullshit stops now. Nobody says that.
Yeah, and maybe you lock them up, or maybe you get a guy that's right on the brink, or a guy that can help next year, that kind of thing. But I don't think they're the only ones that are in a position to maybe be looking to do that, because I think the Reds are in a position like that. They've got, if they're healthy and things play out going forward the way they think, and they're getting a couple guys back, they really don't have a glaring single need to go spend the farm on. But if they don't feel like they're buyers, they have some short-term assets they can trade off and take advantage of the marketplace, especially some of these pitchers they've got, and get guys that might be able to help in the short term. Not this year necessarily, maybe, but maybe next year and the year after. I think that's a tack you're going to see in this weird market that we have this year. There's potentially a lot more buyers. There's potentially more demand on hitters than there been in recent years. Relievers are always going to be in high demand. But you could see some of these teams taking this different tack that's more of a get a head start on the offseason. And I think the Cubs would be wise to do that. Here's the other thing. We got the draft coming up on Sunday. And so it's a month later than it traditionally has been these days.
Yeah.
There's a rule change that just came into effect a few years ago. You can trade draft picks. You don't have to wait a year to trade a guy you drafted out of your minor league system. So you could identify, and I mean, this would be some serious three-dimensional chess, but you could draft with the idea that who I'm drafting is going to be a value play in the market to try to help a team like the Cubs who have a high payroll, don't plan to rebuild, try to win next year, but maybe they pick a guy who might have some value in a trade market and package it.
In terms of, and I'm just looking up the draft order, the Cubs last year got Matt Shaw at 13. He's close. They've got James Triantos, top 5 or 7 prospect in their system. He's close. So is there somebody you would move off the team and go, I'm going to slide a prospect in there right now? In a lost season, I'm going to get somebody ready with some experience so they don't go to freaking Sloan Park next year not knowing what to expect about big league pitching. Is there somebody you do that with?
I'm not sure there's a guy out there that has the kind of contract that you would do that with, right? Because the guys that would come to mind to me are the guys on multi-year deals or the veterans on multi-year deals. The kind of guys you could do that with might be the kind of guys you want to give more playing time to. Or, hey, man.
Well, it could be Nico Horner.
It could be. Why would you do that? Why would you do that with Nico Horner?
Because I got second baseman coming.
Where are you going to put Nico Horner?
I'm trading him.
Why would that to me doesn't make any sense. I like Nico Horner on a contract.
So do I.
I like the kind of player he is. I think he's good for the mix as a winner. And so, I mean, that's me. I mean, I hear what you're saying. There is value there, but there might be even more value to him on that team. That's the dilemma you face with all these guys. They are in a corner, man. There is no easy solution at the trade deadline for that team. Not even close. They might be in the worst position, all things considered, going into the trade deadline of any team in baseball.
Why?
Because they could and or should be selling. They don't have clear-cut value to sell. And if they go try to buy, they're probably going to overpay for as much as they need, and it probably won't get them there. They're boxed in, man.
And I don't agree that they're boxed in because they can outspend everybody. They got 70-some million coming off the books. And if you make an intelligent trade, like
we're talking player capital when we're talking the trade deadline. There's no free agency out there. I understand they have the ability to take a contract, but that's just one piece of the much larger puzzle. Other teams can do that too. And you just quoted Cashman. If you happen to be in the same market for a player and it's about taking on a contract, who do you think is going to be more aggressive?
The Yankees, because they're the Yankees. That's what they do.
Right. So I'm saying you're not in an enviable position, and you might be in as bad a position as anybody in the game.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree that you're in that.
Oh, let me ask you this. So should Jed sell?
Should Jed sell?
And I'm putting that in the context of this season of understanding that you're probably not going to find the resources to maximize this season at this point? Should he sell and start looking to next year? But even if it's a strategic sell.
Again, we went through this last week with Michael Cerami. I don't know exactly what you're selling. Like Jameson Taillon's throwing the shit out of the ball. If I trade him with 2 more years left on the deal, I can afford the contract. So I better get something really freaking good.
Well, there would be one. Okay, so let me ask you this. If you're Jed and you decide, I think we generally agree here, the smart move might be to try to make some good deals now that will put you in a much better position next year. Like you're not rebuilding, but like going into next year, you're in a much better position. So if Jed takes that approach and he starts putting some guys on the block with the idea of playing toward next year, is that an indictment of the job he's done? And should he be held accountable by the ownership for that?
Yes and yes. And let me just say this. Look, I like Jed very much. I think he's a really intelligent guy. I think he is at times far too risk averse for my taste. You know me. You've known me a long time. I'm much more ready, shoot, aim. I shouldn't have. But I think I'll hit, and I have more than I'll miss. I would call him in if I was his owner. I would call him up. Jed, we're having dinner tonight. Meet me here. We're going to dinner.
And Jed, you're paying because I've spent enough on garbage on this team already.
Yes. We're going to go get a good dinner and we're going to talk. And we're going to have somewhere where we can be private. We can be frank. And I'm going to say, look, you got a year left on your deal. Let me just start this meeting by telling you I'm going to let you have the last year. I'm not firing you wherever we finish at the end of the year. But let me be clear. I've given you a lot of money to spend, and I have more. I'm willing to spend more if a team has a chance to make a run. You must succeed this offseason where we're contending next year, or I will make a change. You will get your year, but I am done taking these baby steps, and we've got these prospects. No, it's been 5 years next year.
Yeah, that's a conversation you should have had last winter.
Correct.
I mean, that's a long leash, man.
I'm going to give you your year. I like you very much. I think you're a good person. I like you in my organization. I
agree with all of that stuff.
But guess what? If we don't compete in 2025, I will make a change. And that does not mean I'm promoting Carter Hawkins. I'm going to make a change. So show me, I believe in you. Show me why I should next year extend you. And if you do what I'm asking you to, I'll take care of you. But I'm done. Baby steps. Here's our model, and in 26, and in 20. No, I'm contending at 25.
I like Jed personally. I know you know this.
Yeah.
I think he's a good guy, and I've always had good dealings and relationship with him. I think the time's already there to evaluate. I think we can fairly evaluate at this point. I mean, this is 2 years in a row where they've added, expected to be good. They were okay last year. They took a step forward last year. They've taken a really awful step backwards this year.
No doubt.
And it doesn't give me any faith that that's the right guy pulling the strings and making the decisions going into next year. I think he's in a position right now where if he sells or buys, his job could be on the line. Because it already, I think he's chasing, what's that other phrase? I get all these phrases wrong. Chasing good money with bad, chasing bad money with good.
You don't throw good money after bad.
Yeah, there you go. Which is what buying might be at this point.
Yeah, again, unless that buying is a long-term buy where...
Well, right. Okay, so, again, it's for next year. But if you're buying to try to win this year, I think that's a mistake. I think you'll overpay, and I don't think you can acquire enough that... You might acquire enough that you sneak in this crazy mediocre NL, but forget what the Diamondbacks did last year. I don't think you would have I don't think you'd acquire enough bullpen. I just don't think there's an avenue to a series win in October.
No, but we've seen the last 2 years, the Phillies wild card sneak in, get to the World Series. The Diamondbacks sneak in.
You can't compare the Phillies because the Phillies have superstars.
That was 2 years ago. They had
Bryce Harper then. They had Bryce Harper and Zach Wheeler then.
They did. They fired Joe Girardi, and the next thing you know, they're in the World Series.
Yeah.
So before I let you go, the Cubs will pick number 14 this coming draft next week. A lot of people projecting they're going to take Cam Smith, third baseman out of Florida State, and they believe he's a fast-track guy, very similar to Matt Shaw, who they took last year. So if he's the guy that you take, and again, we'll see what they do, if he's the guy that you take, well, that certainly throws a wrench in the Chris Morrell plans. Matt Shaw, they love. If you've got this kid slotted at third, then Matt Shaw's probably going to second, which means you might see Nico Hoerner on the move next winter.
That's a big risk to take, man, because you don't know where that guy's going to be or when he would be coming. Now he's a college guy, so that projects a little better. It's lower risk. It's classic, right? It's classic, risk averse type of a pick. But you don't know when he's coming. You don't know how long he's going to be or what he'll be when he gets there. We got a pretty good idea what Nico Hoerner is, and actually we're starting to get a pretty good idea what Shaw is. So I don't know. I wouldn't be sitting there. I wouldn't be getting rid of guys because of who I think I'm going to be drafting in the middle of the first round.
It's a good point. You could draft him and then trade Nico next winter, or trade one of the prospects.
Or you could trade the guy you drafted.
No question. So I was just about to say to you. All right, Cubs and Orioles will complete their series. Gordon and I are going to tape next week once the first half ends as we preview some of the draft picks that could be on the board at pick 14. Do they go pitching? Do they go position? Do they go college? Do they go high school? We will find out. And by the way, memo to Rob Manfred and the Brain Trust at MLB, the dumbest thing that you can't trade draft picks. I know you can trade the player. Every other league trades picks. Trade draft picks. It would make it a lot more interesting.
The dumbest thing is that the draft is All-Star weekend. It should have just left it alone in June. All these guys have been sitting around since their college season's over. The teams drafting hate it. You should have just left it alone. If you want to do a show in June.
Agreed, but you should be able to trade draft picks. Gordon, have a great day, man.
All right, you too, man.
Appreciate you. By the way, Otis the Owl, baby. 4-1. Here we go. You just remember, if they get red freaking hot, that owl right there is going to get a lot of credit.
I'm sorry, who?
Otis the Owl.
Who?
Named for the late, great Tom Hellman, the Cubs clubhouse man. His nickname was Otis.
Who?
Have a great day, Gordon.
All right.
For Gordon, I'm Kap. That's another edition of our Cubs Recap Podcast, presentation of our Recap YouTube channel, and available audio only everywhere you get your favorite podcast. For Gordon, I'm Kap. Take that.